Managing a hotel wasn't just a job for me, it was my life. I'm Grace, and this hotel was my world until he walked in. He was impossible to miss, a young man in a suit that screamed money, his attention glued to an expensive phone. He checked in with a smile that could knock you off your feet. "Good evening, I'm Ethan," he said, his voice smooth as silk. "I'm here for a couple of nights. Anything interesting happening around here?" I found myself smiling back, a bit caught off guard by his charm. "Well, Ethan, the city's full of surprises." "Depends on what you're looking for," I replied, handing him his key. Our chat was brief, but it sparked something. Maybe it was his curiosity, or the way he seemed genuinely interested when I spoke. He didn't stay long, but when he checked out, he left a note. "Enjoyed our talk. Care to continue it over dinner?" It read. I hesitated, not used to mixing work with my personal life. But something about him drew me in. We met at a local restaurant, a cozy place where the chatter and clinking glasses made it feel like a bubble away from the world. "You really have this place dialed in, don't you, Grace?" he said with a smile as we sat down. I laughed, feeling oddly at ease. "Guess you could say I've had some practice." Dinner flew by as we talked about everything and nothing. He was an open book, or so it seemed, sharing tales of his travels and investments. When the conversation turned to me, I found myself opening up more than I usually would. I told him about losing my parents, about how it was just Mia and me against the world since I was 21. "That's a heavy load to carry, Grace. You must be incredibly strong," he said, his eyes reflecting a mix of admiration and something else I couldn't quite place. I shrugged, brushing off the compliment. "We all play the hand we're dealt, right? Mia's been my priority. Our parents left us a little something, and I've been careful with it. Made it grow, bit by bit." He nodded, his expression thoughtful. "That's impressive. You've got a good head on your shoulders." As the night wore on, I realized I hadn't laughed this much in a long time. But when I tried to learn more about him, about his family, he'd skillfully change the subject. "My folks and I don't see eye to eye. Let's just say they have their ideas about life, and I have mine," he said, a shadow crossing his face. I didn't press further. We all have our stories, our scars. As the evening drew to a close, I found myself not wanting it to end. There was something about Ethan, something that made me feel alive in a way I hadn't in years. My life with Ethan felt like a whirlwind, each day a new adventure, every moment spent together filled with laughter and dreams of the future. He had this way of making the ordinary seem extraordinary, turning simple dinners into unforgettable evenings. "Ethan, I still can't believe how fast everything is moving," I said to him one evening as we sat in our favorite little cafe, the one with the dim lights and cozy corners. He reached across the table, taking my hand in his. "Grace, when something feels right, why wait? I've never been surer of anything in my life," he replied, his eyes holding mine with an intensity that sent shivers down my spine. "I know, it's just, everything's happening so fast. It's a lot to take in," I confessed, feeling a whirlpool of emotion swirling inside me. He squeezed my hand gently. "I get it, but trust me, Grace. I'm here for the long haul. I want to build a life with you, a future. And I want to start by making our wedding day the most memorable day of our lives." The way he spoke about our wedding, with such passion and certainty, it was hard not to get caught up in his vision. He painted a picture of a day so lavish and beautiful it took my breath away. "Imagine it, Grace. A ceremony that no one will forget, a celebration of our love. It's going to be perfect," he said, his voice filled with excitement. "And the honeymoon? You mentioned something about the most expensive hotel in the world?" I asked, a mix of curiosity and apprehension in my voice. His smile widened. "Yes, it's all part of the plan. But I need you to trust me, to take this leap with me. Your savings for the wedding, my funds for the honeymoon and our future home. Together, we'll make this a reality." I hesitated, the practical part of me screaming caution. But looking into his eyes, full of love and promise, I found myself nodding. Okay, Ethan. Let's do it. Let's make this wedding a day to remember. As the weeks flew by, the wedding preparations became all-consuming. Ethan was a man of action, taking care of every detail, ensuring that our day would be nothing short of spectacular. And as I watched him, so full of life and determination, I couldn't help but fall even deeper in love. Ethan, you're amazing. The way you're handling everything, I don't know how to thank you, I said to him one evening, as we reviewed the list of guests and the lavish menu he'd planned. He pulled me close, his arms wrapping around me. Grace, seeing you happy is all the thanks I need. This wedding, it's just the beginning. Our life together is going to be even more beautiful. But amidst the whirl of excitement, there were moments when doubt crept in, whispering questions in the quiet of the night. Was I moving too fast? Was I getting swept away by the romance of it all? Every time those thoughts surfaced, Ethan's assurances were there to chase them away. His words, his promises, they were my anchor, holding me steady in the storm of uncertainty. The wedding prep had my days packed, but amidst the whirl of cake tastings and flower selections, I knew I needed Mia, my sister, my confidant, by my side. Since our parents passed, it had been us against the world, and her input meant everything to me, especially now. I called her up, hoping she could sneak away from the cafe she worked at. Hey, Mia, think you can ditch the aprons and coffee smells for some tulle and satin today? I half joked, my voice laced with hopeful anticipation. Mia's laughter came through the phone, light and familiar. For you, sis, I'll trade coffee stains for bridal trains any day. Give me an hour to wrap things up here, and I'm all yours. The bridal shop was a wonderland of white and ivory, dresses cascading like waterfalls of lace and silk. As I tried on gowns, Mia's presence was a calming force in the storm of satin and sequins. That one, Grace. It's like it was made for you, Mia said, her eyes lighting up as I stepped out of the dressing room in a gown that felt just right. I studied my reflection, the dress hugging every curve and cascading to the floor in a sea of soft fabric. You think? I feel. I don't know, like a real bride, I admitted, a smile creeping onto my lips. Mia's grin matched mine, but in a fleeting moment, I caught a shadow pass over her face, quick and troubling. Before I could question it, she was up and pulling a dress off the rack. Mind if I give this one a whirl? Just for kicks, Mia said, holding up a stunning gown that caught the light with every movement. I laughed, the sound a mix of surprise and delight. Planning on eloping, are you? Or is there a mystery man you've been hiding from me? Mia's laugh, usually so carefree, held a note of something I couldn't quite place. Oh, Grace, you know me. Always a bridesmaid, never a bride. But a girl can dream, can't she? She quipped, though her gaze darted away, hiding something. The day rolled on, a blend of laughter and whispers of silk. But Mia's mood seemed to flip like a switch, her usual bubbly demeanor clouded by moments of distraction. Everything okay, Mia? You seem a bit off today. I probed gently, concern threading through my words. She was quick to dismiss it, a wave of her hand erasing my worries. It's nothing, really. Just cafe chaos. You know how it gets, Mia assured me, but her forced smile didn't quite reach her eyes. As we left the bridal shop, the weight of her secrets seemed to hang between us, an unspoken tension that neither of us could quite navigate. I wanted to believe it was just pre-wedding stress, maybe a spat with a troublesome customer, but the nagging in my gut told me it was something more. That night, as I lay in bed, the excitement of finding the perfect dress was overshadowed by the puzzle that was Mia's behavior. She was the one person who had always been an open book to me, yet now, there were pages I couldn't read, words hidden just out of sight. And as the wedding day edged closer, the joy I should have been feeling was tinged with a worry I couldn't shake. Mia and I had faced everything together, but now, it felt like there was a growing gap, one filled with secrets and unasked questions. Little did I know, the answers to those questions were about to turn my world on its head. It was a day like any other, or so I thought, until Ethan left his phone buzzing and forgotten on the kitchen counter. As I went about tidying up the apartment, the constant notifications from his phone nagged at me, a persistent reminder of something amiss. The lack of a password was a surprise, but it was nothing compared to the shock that awaited me inside. The messages between Ethan and Mia were like a punch to the gut, each word a betrayal that tore through my heart. They weren't just having an affair, they were planning to push me aside like I was nothing, like all the years of sisterhood with Mia meant less than the dirt under their shoes. I read and reread Mia's message, confessing her pregnancy with Ethan's child. The words blurred as tears clouded my vision. Can't believe we pulled this off. She's such a fool, falling for every lie. And now, with the baby, we can finally be together, just as we planned, it read. The world around me seemed to spin, a carousel of deceit and treachery. Ethan's reply was no better, declaring his love for Mia and his eagerness to see me humiliated, ousted from my own wedding. She's just a naive cash cow. Can't wait to get rid of her and start our real life together. This wedding will be perfect, thanks to her money, he wrote. I sat there, the phone heavy in my hand, a storm of emotions raging within me. Betrayal, anger, disbelief, they all fought for dominance, but above all, a cold determination began to take root. They thought they could use me, discard me like an old toy? I'd show them the price of underestimating Grace Anderson. When Ethan returned, his carefree demeanor was like a slap in the face. Hey, babe, did I miss any important calls? He asked, casually picking up his phone. I forced a smile, my insides churning with anger. Nope, just the usual stuff. Busy day? I replied, my voice steady, despite the turmoil within. He flashed that charming smile, the one I now knew was nothing but a mask. As always. But nothing's more important than coming back to you, he said, leaning in for a kiss I had to force myself not to recoil from. From that moment on, I played the part of the oblivious fiancé to perfection. I smiled, I nodded, I went along with the wedding plans. But behind the scenes, I was planning my revenge on the two people who had betrayed me in the worst possible way. Each passing day was a test of my will, a balancing act between the role I had to play and the fury that burned within. But I wouldn't let them see me break. I'd bide my time, and when the moment was right, they'd learn the true cost of their treachery. And as I lay in bed each night, the image of Ethan and Mia's deceitful faces etched into my mind, I made a silent vow. They would pay for what they'd done, and their twisted game would be their undoing. I was no longer just the jilted fiancé, I was the architect of their downfall, and my revenge would be meticulous, calculated, and oh so sweet. The days leading up to the wedding felt surreal. On the surface, everything was perfect, the flowers, the guest list, the dress. But beneath the facade of perfection was a storm brewing, a tempest of anger and betrayal that I held tightly within. Ethan was his usual self, all smiles and affection, blissfully unaware of the storm he was about to sail into. Grace, everything's coming together so beautifully. This wedding is going to be the talk of the town, he said one evening, as we reviewed the final preparations. I nodded, my smile practiced and polished. Yes, it's going to be a day to remember, I replied, the words laced with a meaning he couldn't possibly grasp. Mia was harder to face. The sister I had loved and protected was now a stranger, her every word and gesture a reminder of her betrayal. Yet, I kept my mask firmly in place, the mask of the loving sister, blissfully ignorant of the knife she had planted in my back. Grace, you're handling everything so well. I don't know how you do it, Mia said one day, as we finalized the seating arrangements. I looked at her, the sister I thought I knew, and forced a laugh. Oh, Mia, you know me. Always had a knack for organizing chaos, I said, the irony of the statement not lost on me. As the wedding day drew closer, the tension became almost tangible, a tightrope I walked with precision and care. Ethan's phone was now always guarded, his conversations hushed and hurried. But it didn't matter. I had seen enough, knew enough. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and bright, a beautiful day for a beautiful disaster. As I got ready, the reflection in the mirror showed a bride, serene and poised. But behind the veil and the makeup was a woman on a mission, a woman who would no longer be a pawn in someone else's game. "Mia's running late, huh?" Ethan remarked casually, adjusting his tie. I met his gaze in the mirror, my eyes giving nothing away. "Yes, but she'll be here. Wouldn't miss it for the world," I replied, the double meaning clear in my voice. He nodded, oblivious to the undercurrents. "Well, she's always been a bit unpredictable. But today's about us, Grace. Our new beginning." I turned to face him, my smile a masterpiece of composure. "Yes, Ethan. A new beginning indeed," I said, my heart steeling itself for what was about to come. And as I walked down the aisle, the eyes of friends and family on me, I knew that this was it. The calm before the storm was over, and the reckoning was about to begin. The vows were waiting, the guests were watching, and the stage was set. It was time for the truth to come crashing down, and for the real show to begin. Standing next to Ethan in front of the priest, my heart was a mix of hope and trepidation. The words of the vows hovered in the air, a promise of forever that was about to be shattered in the most brutal way. The guests, unaware of the storm about to break, watched us with smiles and teary eyes. But then, the unimaginable happened. Mia, dressed in a bridal gown that mirrored my own, stormed down the aisle. Her eyes locked on mine, not with sisterly love, but with a cold determination that chilled me to the bone. "Move aside, Grace. I'm the one who deserves to be here. Ethan loves me, and this child I'm carrying is his," Mia declared, her voice cutting through the stunned silence. The room erupted into whispers and gasps, the guests turning to each other in confusion and disbelief. Ethan, rather than showing any sign of shock or remorse, let out a hearty laugh, his true colors shining through the polished facade. "Well said, Mia. Grace, you've been a good host, but this is where your part ends. Why don't you join the audience? This is Mia's moment now," Ethan jeered, his words dripping with mockery and contempt. The audacity of their betrayal, so public and so cruel, sent a shockwave through the crowd. But as the reality of the situation sank in, my reaction surprised everyone, including myself. I looked at Ethan, then at Mia, and smiled. Of course, why not? I wouldn't want to miss the show. After all, I did pay for it, I said, my voice calm, betraying none of the turmoil inside me. Mia and Ethan exchanged a confused glance, clearly not expecting such a composed response. The guests, too, were baffled, their eyes darting between us, trying to make sense of the surreal scene unfolding before them. As I gracefully took a seat among the guests, my head held high, the whispers grew louder. What's she up to? Is she really going to let this happen? The questions buzzed around the room like a swarm of bees, but I remained serene, a statue amidst the chaos. Ethan and Mia, now standing together at the altar, looked unnerved. My calm demeanor had thrown them off, their plan to humiliate and discard me not unfolding as they had anticipated. What's your game, Grace? Why are you so calm? Ethan asked, his voice a mix of curiosity and concern. I met his gaze, my smile never wavering. No game, Ethan. Just enjoying the fruits of my labor. Please, proceed. I'm eager to see how this plays out, I replied, my words a velvet-covered dagger. The ceremony resumed, but the atmosphere had shifted. The guests watched in a mix of shock and anticipation, unsure whether they were witnessing a wedding or the prelude to a dramatic reckoning. As Mia and Ethan exchanged vows, the words felt hollow, a mockery of the sacred promise they were supposed to represent. And as I sat there, surrounded by friends and family who were struggling to comprehend the spectacle, I knew that this was just the beginning. The real show was yet to come, and Mia and Ethan, in their arrogance and deceit, had just secured front-row seats to their own downfall. As the priest asked if anyone objected, the doors burst open. A woman, older and more worn than either Ethan, stormed in, her eyes blazing with fury. Stop this wedding right now, she demanded, her voice slicing through the silence like a knife. Ethan's face turned ashen, his eyes wide with shock. Catherine? What are you doing here? He stammered, the mask of the perfect groom slipping away. Catherine, Ethan's legal wife, as I had discovered, marched up to the altar. I'm here to stop you from making a bigger fool of yourself and these people. Grace, you deserve to know the truth, she said, turning to me with a sympathetic look. The guests murmured among themselves, the scandal unfolding before them more gripping than any soap opera. Mia clutched her stomach, her face a mask of shock and fear. Catherine continued, her voice firm and clear. Ethan is a liar and a cheat. He's in debt up to his ears, his investments failed, and he's been using you all to dig himself out of his hole. And Mia, you poor girl, you're just another pawn in his game. The room erupted into chaos, the guests rising from their seats, the whispers growing louder. Ethan tried to speak, but his words were drowned out by the uproar. I stood up, my heart pounding, but my voice steady. There's more, I announced, silencing the room. I hired a private detective after I discovered Ethan and Mia's affair. Not only is Ethan already married and drowning in debt, but he's also been hiding a daughter, a child he's never supported. Mia's face crumpled, the reality of her situation crashing down around her. Ethan, is this true? Tell me she's lying, she pleaded, her voice breaking. Ethan, now pale and defeated, had no words. His lies, his deceit, all laid bare for the world to see. But the final blow was yet to come. As the guests processed the revelations, Ethan's parents, two stern and imposing figures, entered the room. I had reached out to them, told them everything. And now, they were here to confront the son who had brought shame to their name. Ethan's father, a man of few words, spoke with a voice that resonated with disappointment and anger. Ethan, you are no son of mine. Your actions today and in the past have shown your true character. You are cut off from our family and our fortune. As the room settled into an uneasy silence, I looked at Ethan, Mia, and the shattered dreams they had tried to build on a foundation of deceit. The pain of betrayal still throbbed in my heart, but standing there, amidst the ruins of what was meant to be my happiest day, I knew that this was not the end of my story. In the aftermath, I found myself in the cold halls of justice, seeking reparation for the damage Ethan had caused. The courtroom felt like another world, a place where the pain and humiliation I had endured were translated into legal jargon and paperwork. Ethan, you've not only broken a promise, but you've also shattered trust and exploited generosity. You owe me more than just an apology. You owe me compensation for turning my life upside down, I stated firmly, my voice echoing in the quiet courtroom. The judge's gavel sounded like thunder in the tense silence. The court finds in favor of the plaintiff. The defendant is hereby ordered to pay $50,000 in damages for the distress and financial loss caused, he declared, his words a balm to my wounded spirit. As I walked out of the courtroom, the burden of the past months felt lighter. Justice had been served, but the road to healing was just beginning. Ethan's troubles didn't end with me. Catherine, his legal wife, fueled by hurt and fury, launched her own legal battle, demanding compensation for his infidelity and neglect of their child. The once suave and confident man was now entangled in a web of his own making, his lies and deceit finally catching up to him. Mia, my sister, the person I had trusted and loved more than anyone, found herself alone and abandoned. Ethan had fled the city, leaving her to face the consequences of their actions. She was pregnant and scared, a far cry from the carefree and happy girl she once was. Grace, I know I don't have the right to ask for your forgiveness. But I'm lost, and I don't know what to do, Mia pleaded one day, her eyes filled with tears. I looked at her, the sister I once would have done anything for. Mia, you were my family, my blood. But what you did, it's not something I can just forget or forgive. You chose your path, and now you have to walk it, just like I'm walking mine. The distance between us was more than just physical. It was a chasm filled with betrayal and hurt, too wide and too deep to ever bridge again. Life moved on, but the scars of those tumultuous months remained. I focused on rebuilding my life, on finding peace in the simple things. I had loved and lost, trusted and been betrayed, but through it all, I had survived. And as I looked back on everything that had happened, I realized that the most important journey was the one I was taking within myself. A journey of healing, of rediscovering my strength, and of learning to trust and love again.
I slammed the front door behind me, my hands trembling with rage. The image of my husband Caleb, tangled in bed with my own sister Jenna, was seared into my mind, an unspeakable betrayal that shattered my world. "You lying, cheating bastard," I screamed, storming into the bedroom. Caleb sprang up, his face drained of color as Jenna clutched the sheets around her naked body. "Vivian? I can explain," Caleb stammered, panic flashing in his eyes. "Explain what?" I spat. "That you've been screwing my own flesh and blood behind my back?" Jenna tossed her head defiantly. "Don't act so shocked, sis. You're just an old boring wife. He needs a woman who can keep him excited." White-hot fury flooded my veins as I fought the urge to lunge at her. Caleb stepped between us, his expression a sickening mix of guilt and desperation. "Baby, you're imagining things. This isn't what it looks like. Don't you dare gaslight me." I raged at my husband of 12 years. "I saw it with my own eyes. How could you do this to me, to our marriage?" Jenna smirked. "Face it, Viv. He got tired of your career-obsessed act. I'm just giving him what he really wants." Revulsion churned in my gut as I took in her smug, self-satisfied sneer. This was my baby sister, the girl I helped raise after our parents died, and she had violated the ultimate taboo by sleeping with my husband in our marital bed. "Get out," I said in a low, trembling voice. "Both of you. Get your things and get out of my house right now." Caleb refused to leave that night, claiming the house was as much his as mine. I spent a sleepless night on the couch, my mind replaying the sordid scene over and over. How could the man I loved, the man who had once doted on me, betray me in such a cruel way? And with Jenna, of all people. As the sun rose, I dragged myself up and poured a strong coffee, needing to be clear-headed. I opened the photo album stuffed in the hall closet, flipping through the happy memories of our early years together. We had been the perfect power couple. I was a rising star at Boston's most prestigious law firm, while Caleb had started his own construction company from the ground up. Putting in grueling hours, we lifted each other up, my legal skills helping him win big contracts. His business began thriving, allowing me to take a slightly less demanding role to try for the family we both desperately wanted. But after years of fertility treatments and heartbreak, Caleb grew resentful of the sacrifices he'd made. He started staying later at work sites, picking fights over little things. I was too wrapped up in keeping my career afloat to see the cracks in our foundation. "You look like hell," Caleb's gruff voice made me jump. He stood in the hallway, already dressed for work in his dusty boots. "Gee, I wonder why," I shot back acidly. "My husband's been cheating on me with my own sister. That might mess with someone's beauty sleep." He sighed, raking a hand through his graying hair. "I never meant to hurt you, Viv. Things just got out of hand with Jenna." "Oh, so it just accidentally fell into her? That's quite a feat." Anger flashed across his face. "Don't get snarky with me. You've been married to your job for years, while I killed myself providing for us." "Providing for us?" I laughed bitterly. "My 6-figure salary is the only reason your little construction gig ever got off the ground in the first place." The barb struck home. Caleb's jaw clenched as he grabbed his truck keys. "I'm not doing this with you. I've got work to get to." "That's what you're best at," I called after him. "Walking away from your problems." The front door slammed, leaving me alone with the shattered pieces of my life. I looked at our happy wedding photo, wondering when everything had gone so wrong between us, and why my own sister had to be the one to destroy it all. Over the next few weeks, I tried to go about my daily life as if nothing had changed, but Caleb's emotional withdrawal from me, from our marriage, was becoming impossible to ignore. He would come home late most nights, reeking of whiskey and avoiding my gaze. I'd try to ask about his day, only to be met with grunts or one-word answers. The man I had fallen in love with, passionate, driven, always ready with a joke to make me laugh, was fading away before my eyes. My suspicions were raised further by the constant presence of Jenna in our lives. Despite the horrific betrayal, she would show up at our house uninvited, demanding Caleb's attention for some drama in her life, and he would drop everything to comfort her, to be her shoulder to cry on. Jenna's going through a really tough time right now with the divorce, he mumbled one night after getting off the phone with her. I need to swing by and check on her. Again? I asked pointedly. You were just over there last night fixing something at her place. He avoided my accusing stare. She needs me, Viv. Her soon-to-be ex is giving her hell over the house. Well, I need you too, I exploded, feeling the sting of his indifference. Or have you forgotten that small fact? Caleb simply shrugged, grabbing his keys. I'll be back later. Don't wait up. The front door closed with a sense of finality. I stood there, my fists clenched, as the now familiar feelings of dread and denial washed over me. Surely I was imagining things. Caleb may have been pulling away, but he loved me. He would never... My spiraling thoughts were interrupted by the shrill ring of the phone. Jenna's number flashed on the caller ID, taunting me. What? I snapped, unable to hide my hostility. Vivian? Her voice was hushed, almost trembling. I think Caleb is on his way over. I really need you here. My heart plummeted into my stomach. Need me there? For what exactly? There was a pause, then Jenna spoke in that same tremulous tone. I'm scared, sis. I'm all alone, and the noises from outside. I just feel safer when you're around. I squeezed my eyes shut, nausea rising. She was baiting me, testing to see if her lies could reel me in like a foolish, unsuspecting fish. Did she and Caleb think I was that blind? Save it, Jenna, I said in a low, controlled voice. If you want to screw my husband, you can leave me out of it. The line went dead as my worst fears were confirmed. The man I loved and my own traitorous sister were making a mockery of me right under my nose. But I refused to go down without a fight. I knew I couldn't go on like this, living in denial, letting Caleb and Jenna make a fool of me. I needed proof of their affair before I could decide my next move. So I swallowed my pride and hired a private investigator recommended by a friend. Mike Connolly was a no-nonsense ex-cop who didn't blink an eye at the seedier details of my situation. Cheating spouses are a dime a dozen, he said gruffly. I'll get you the evidence you need. A week later, Mike showed up at my office with a thick manila envelope. Sorry it took a little longer than expected, Mrs. Weston. Your husband's craftier than I gave him credit for. My hands shook as I opened the envelope and the damning photos spilled out. There was Caleb, his arms wrapped around Jenna in a passionate embrace outside a cheap motel. Another showed them in an alley, her legs locked around his waist as they kissed hungrily. Bile rose in my throat looking at the graphic proof, but I forced myself to keep going. Mike had also included transcripts of recorded phone conversations that left no doubt about the nature of their affair. You're all I think about every minute of the day. Caleb's voice crackled through the speakers as I hit play. I can't wait to leave that dried-up sexless marriage and be with you, baby. Jenna's throaty laughter made my skin crawl. Don't worry, lover. Once I bleed that cold bitch dry in the divorce, we'll have more than enough to start over together. The vile words kept coming as I sat numb, tears streaming down my cheeks. This was the man I had loved, the man I had sacrificed for year after year, and he saw me as nothing but a walking ATM to use and discard. I've heard enough, I choked out, shutting off the recorder. Mike watched me impassively as I struggled to compose myself. So what's the plan now, Mrs. Weston? You want me to follow him some more, get more evidence for the divorce proceedings? I stared at the lurid photos of my husband and sister, feeling a scorching anger take hold. Divorce wasn't enough, not for the soul-crushing way they had betrayed me, not for their casual discussion of bleeding me dry. No more following, I said in a low, dangerous voice. I've seen all I need to see. Mike frowned. Then what do you want me to do? A slow, vindictive smile spread across my face as the perfect plan took shape. I want you to keep watching them, Mr. Connolly, but not for me. I leaned forward, reveling in the first stirrings of vengeance. For them. Because by the time I'm through, they'll have much bigger problems than a divorce. With the proof of Caleb and Jenna's affair burning a hole in my brain, I forced myself to continue acting normal around them. It wasn't easy, picturing their naked bodies intertwined while Caleb came home and pecked my cheek like nothing had changed. Working late again? I kept my tone light as he grabbed a beer from the fridge. Caleb grunted in response. Yeah, big project coming due. You know how it is. Of course. I gave him a sad smile. I'm just gonna miss you, that's all. He paused, a flicker of something like guilt crossing his face before the usual blankness returned. Don't wait up, he mumbled, already heading for the door. As soon as it closed, my fake smile vanished. Reaching into my purse, I pulled out the burner phone I'd purchased and tapped out a message. He's on the move. Let me know where he ends up. Mike Connolly's response came quickly. You got it. I spent the evening poring over Caleb's financial statements, construction contracts, and other business documents. As a corporate lawyer, I knew all the loopholes, the sleight-of-hand tricks companies use to cut corners. Shady labor practices, environmental violations, tax evasion, you name it, I'd helped clients get around it. Now I would use that knowledge to burn Caleb's entire empire to the ground. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. A new address from Mike, along with a terse message. Motel again. White-hot fury lanced through me as I pictured them together, laughing at my oblivious suffering. I wanted to storm over there to scream the truth and make them face the consequences. But I forced myself to stay calm, to keep my eyes on the prize, making them pay in the most devastating way possible. Over the next few weeks, I began deploying a strategic series of anonymous calls and tips to various regulatory agencies, code violations on multiple construction sites, improper disposal of hazardous materials, undocumented workers being paid under the table. At first, it was just minor fines and work stoppages, which Caleb angrily tried to dispute. But I kept hitting him from all sides, the IRS, the EPA, the Department of Labor. His panicked calls and texts went unanswered as I busied myself with other important cases at the office. What the hell is going on? He roared when he finally made it home one night, slamming his fist on the counter. Every single one of my sites is under investigation. I looked up from my book with a neutral expression. I'm so sorry, babe. I had no idea things were that bad at work. His bloodshot eyes bored into me before he seemed to deflate with a frustrated sigh. I gotta get a handle on this, Viv. The fines are crippling me, and if they actually shut me down... I crossed the room and placed a soothing hand on his arm, trying not to smirk at the raw panic in his voice. It'll be okay. You've worked too hard to let this take you down. Caleb pulled me into a stiff hug, his body tense. I don't know what I'd do without you, he muttered into my hair. You're about to find out, I thought with grim satisfaction, because by the time I'm done, you'll have lost everything. The next few months were torture, watching Caleb's world crumble around him. Construction sites were shut down left and right amid the mounting investigations. Fines and legal fees piled up into the millions. Employees walked off the job as payroll bounced. Yet through it all, the smug bastard remained oblivious to the fact that I was the one orchestrating his downfall from the shadows. He tried desperately to get ahead of the allegations, hiring lawyers and consultants to do damage control. But I was always one step ahead, anonymous tip leading to another disastrous blow. Jenna, of course, was firmly by his side the entire time, playing the supportive, concerned girlfriend as Caleb unraveled. No doubt she was counting down the days until his business assets would be stripped away in the divorce, leaving her free to swoop in as his sugar baby. This is insane, Viv, Caleb yelled one night, pacing furiously as I calmly sipped tea. They're threatening to pull my contractor's license, to freeze all my accounts. Well, did you do the things they're accusing you of? I asked mildly. Maybe you should just come clean if you've been cutting corners. His face went beet red with rage. I'm not a crook. Someone is setting me up. Don't you see that? Or maybe, a silky voice came from the hallway, you're just reaping what you sowed after treating your wife and business like dirt for so long. Jenna slinked into the room, eyes glittering with undisguised malice aimed at me. I felt a flicker of disgust at her blatant attempt to turn Caleb against me even further. Stay out of this, Jen, Caleb growled. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. But she ignored him, sidling up to rub his arm soothingly. Poor baby, you're under so much stress. Maybe it's time you finally face the truth. Vivian is the one behind all this. I barely hid my smirk as Caleb's head whipped around, eyes narrowing at me with sudden suspicion. What is she talking about? Think about it, lover. Jenna purred, shooting me a triumphant look. Who else could be doing this to you? Vivian's a corporate lawyer. She knows all the loopholes, the ways to bleed a company dry from the inside. Caleb opened his mouth, then closed it slowly, as realization seemed to dawn. I held his gaze steadily, daring him to break first. Is it true? He finally rasped out, fists clenched at his sides. Have you been the one destroying my life's work all this time, burning everything I built to the ground? I let out a soft chuckle, reveling in his shock and horror. Finally caught on, did you? Yeah, it's all been me. Every violation, every fine, every shutdown order. I stood, feeling powerful as I towered over both of their stunned faces. And I'm not done yet, not by a long shot. You're going to lose everything, Caleb, your business, your money, your reputation, all of it. Jenna's mouth worked soundlessly as I turned my icy glare on her. And you're going to be left with absolutely nothing when the gravy train dries up. No business to bleed, no man to leech off of. You bitch, she finally spat out, color rising in her cheeks. We never did anything wrong. Save it. I held up a hand, digging into my purse to pull out the thick manila envelope. I have all the proof I need of your sordid little affair, all the photos, all the recordings of your crude pillow talk. I tossed it at their feet, reveling in their twin expressions of shock and shame as the lurid evidence spilled out. So go ahead, I said with a tight smile. Try and talk your way out of this one. I'll be waiting. For days after my grand reveal, Caleb and Jenna avoided me like the plague. He'd leave before I got up and return late, holed up in his study. Jenna stopped coming around altogether, much to my relief. I could feel them stewing, scheming, wondering how to slither their way out of the disastrous situation I'd put them in. Good luck with that, I thought with grim satisfaction. I had them dead to rights. Finally, about a week later, Caleb approached me with hunched shoulders and a hangdog expression. Viv, we need to talk. I arched an eyebrow but remained silent as he sank onto the couch beside me. Up close, I could see his haggard appearance, red-rimmed eyes, graying stubble, the once confident man, utterly broken. I don't know what to say, he began haltingly. What you did, the way you dismantled everything I built from nothing. He shook his head slowly. It was a masterful job. A tiny smirk played across my lips at the begrudging compliment. I do have a particular skill set. You've won, Caleb sighed, dropping his head into his hands. The company is being forcibly dissolved. The banks are seizing assets, properties, there's nothing left. Gee, that's too bad. I inspected my nails nonchalantly. But I'm sure you and Jenna have enough socked away to keep you comfortable for a while, right? His jaw clenched at the mention of her name. Jenna's gone, for good. My eyebrows rose in surprise. Oh? Did the little mistress finally get bored once the cash dried up? Don't start, Caleb warned, a flash of anger in his eyes. She's out of my life. Out of our lives. Smart man, I murmured, studying him appraisingly. Maybe not such an idiot after all if you dumped the leech. He drew a deep, shuddering breath. Look, you've made your point, okay? You wanted to make me suffer, and you did it. I'm ruined, bankrupt, my whole life destroyed because of my stupid mistakes. I opened my mouth, but he barreled on. The only thing I have left is this house, the house you bled and sacrificed for just as much as me. His eyes bored into me intently. Just take it, Vivian. Take it all in the divorce, and I'll walk away with nothing. You'll have your justice. I felt a surge of vicious glee, but kept my expression neutral. That's an interesting proposal, though forgive me for not exactly trusting you at the moment. I'm not asking you to trust me, Caleb said roughly. I'm asking you to take everything and leave me with the clothes on my back, if that's what you want. It's the least I deserve, after how I treated you. I studied him silently for a long moment, wheels spinning in my mind. This was it, the final delicious act of my revenge, to strip him of every last thing he valued, to leave him a broken, shamed husk of a man. All right, Caleb, I said at last. I'll take your offer. Draw up the papers to sign over this house, the property, everything to me in the divorce, and you'd better not cross me, because if you try to weasel out of it... I let the threat hang in the air. He swallowed hard and gave a solemn nod. You have my word. Just tell me where to sign. I smiled thinly and stood, heading for the kitchen to pour myself a glass of wine. My petty, vindictive plan was finally complete. But I wouldn't stop there. Not until I had utterly and completely destroyed both Caleb and Jenna, leaving them as empty husks. They would know the soul-crushing pain of utter betrayal, and I would savor every agonizing second of it. The next few months were a whirlwind as I solidified my control over Caleb's decimated company and assets. True to his word, he signed over the deed to the house and all remaining property, leaving himself with nothing. I took a perverse pleasure in watching him slink around like a whipped dog, forced to move into a grungy apartment and take whatever construction labor jobs he could find. The mighty businessman brought to his knees by the wife he had so callously betrayed. As for Jenna, she had indeed slunk away into the shadows once Caleb's money ran out. I couldn't help but revel in the thought of my traitorous sister living in squalor, having tasted the high life only to have it torn away. Maybe now she'd think twice before trying to steal another woman's husband. With my laser focus and legal expertise, I was able to streamline and rebuild the construction company into a highly profitable, ethically run operation. Contracts were renegotiated, shady practices eliminated, and I brought in a trusted team to oversee day-to-day management. Watching the business thrive again under my guidance was deeply satisfying. This was my vengeance made whole, taking everything Caleb had worked for and making it better, stronger, more successful than he ever could, all while he scraped by on menial labor wages. A small part of me knew I should feel sated, that I had gotten the ultimate revenge for his unforgivable betrayal. But there was still that lingering ember of resentment, that urge to keep twisting the knife until he and Jenna were left as empty, debased shells. My chance came a few months later, when there was a loud pounding on my door one evening. I opened it to find Caleb disheveled and wild-eyed on my front step. "You've got to help me," he rasped urgently. "It's Jenna. She's in trouble." Despite my distaste, I felt a prickle of concern. "What kind of trouble?" He ran a shaky hand through his lank hair. "She's been crashing on my buddy's couch, trying to hustle drinks at this skeezy bar, racking up debt with the wrong people, if you know what I mean." My jaw clenched as I realized he was insinuating Jenna had turned to prostitution and petty crime to keep a roof over her head. As much as she had betrayed me, she was still my baby sister. "And you want what exactly?" I asked coolly. "For me to save the day with money? After everything?" Caleb swallowed hard, his bravado seeming to deflate. "Please, Vivian, I know I have no right to ask you for anything, but she's in deep. I can't let anything happen to her." I stared at him for a long moment, feeling a flicker of the man I had once loved beneath the broken, desperate exterior. As much as he had hurt me, some part of him still cared for Jenna, still wanted to protect her. With a heavy sigh, I turned and retrieved my purse, pulling out a wad of cash. "Here," I said gruffly, pressing it into his palm. "Get her out of whatever hellhole she's in and back on her feet. But that's it. I'm not getting involved further than that." Caleb's eyes widened as he clutched the money. "Viv, thank you. You don't know what this means." I held up a hand to cut him off. "Don't thank me. Just take the money and go before I change my mind." He gave a jerky nod, something like shame flickering across his features before he turned and hurried away into the night. I watched him go, feeling a strange sense of melancholy amid the satisfaction. My revenge was complete. I had taken everything from the two people who betrayed me most, leaving them penniless and alone. So why did this victory feel so hollow?